So, crazy thing about society, it sucked. TBH, you ask me, it still sucks. Life is cruel and hard, big systems of society oppress people every day, and you have to grind to make a living. Our man Alatriste knows this better than anyone, as a mercenary of the 80 Years' War. So if you don't know, the 80 Years' War was one of the wars of the Christian Reformation, mostly involving the Spanish Empire versus the Dutch, the French, and the English. So you can imagine how that went. But here's the rub. We open on an assault on the city of Oudkirk. Spanish mercenaries, including the titular captain, infiltrate the Dutch town and really start taking names. You've got these dope crescendos and totes rad introductions to a character, starting with a shot of his boots. But totes, you're with your pops, about to see a swashbuckling adventure movie, but get ready kid, this ain't that kind of movie, what you think? This Pirates of the Caribbean? Get out of here, we're dying in rivers, we're getting our throats cut open, come on now. We get the stakes right out of the gate. 8 minutes in, one of Alatriste's men dies and leaves him his only son, Inigo Balboa, who's busy checking out the ladies back in town. In this really phenomenal kind of aesthetic juxtaposition, Inigo looks all grimy and homespun, and then Angelica is just covered in the cloth of nobility. Snap back to Alatriste, who's returned from the job at Oudkirk and has taken charge of Inigo. There's a really striking economy of storytelling to these two scenes. We establish class divisions, move into the tavern where Don Francisco, the famous poet, is going on a tear. Then there's a power hierarchy. Alatriste defers to Francisco, Inigo defers to Alatriste, and when the constable arrives, the power dynamic totally shifts to him. Boom, 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 boom. The viewer is immediately presented with the web of society, its hierarchies, its power dynamics, and how people move through them, and how it influences them as well. So when the constable draws Alatriste aside and offers him a job, that shift is organic, and we've already done some really snappy world building. The characters are immediately recognizable, with only 1 or 2 lines of dialogue introducing them.
¿Y cómo va lo del memorial?
Creo que Filippo el Grande y su privado Olivares se limpian el culo con él.
Mucho acero es para derrocharlo tan de mañana, don Francisco.
Se acabó la diversión.
Alatriste is hired by the Spanish Inquisition to kill 2 heretics. Who they are and what they did doesn't matter. He's just getting paid to put a sword through people. However, something's up, and at the last minute, Alatriste refuses to put his targets down. The job soon catches up to him, as it turns out his targets were the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Buckingham in an attempted assassination. This launches an international scandal where the Spanish are running damage control by promising to investigate and punish whoever did this. Already, from these vignettes, we see that the world is cruel, full of contradictions, and our protagonists have almost zero agency. Whatever they do, it's solely in the interest of saving their own skin. Do your job, you go to prison and die. Don't do your job, get bullied and lose face. Our hero is then hired by the Spanish crown. He's interrogated about who hired him for the hit, and he refuses to divulge.
Es cierto eso que cuentan que hace unos días salvasteis la vida a cierto viajero inglés, cuando un camarada vuestro estaba a punto de matarlo.
Disculpe, vuestra excelencia, pero no recuerdo.
Pues os conviene hacer memoria. ¿Sobre qué nos encargó el trabajo, por ejemplo?
Me temo que es imposible. Tengo una memoria infame.
Ya veo.
El señor Alatriste es pobre y altivo. Pero a lo que parece, valiente, discreto y de fiar. En cuanto a vos, vuestro antiguo general don Ambrosio Spínola está dispuesto a seguir ganando batallas para nosotros en Flandes. Sería muy considerado que os hicierais matar allí y no aquí.
He's asked, even though the Count of Olivares here is fully aware of who did it. This is a test for employment. Onto the job, he's sent back to Flanders and has a little vacation out there under the black sun. War is boring. It's waiting, shooting, barely even seeing the enemy if they go down. You don't get paid, your commander's a jerk. Oh, and then you get to crawl around and have a really good time, stabbing people in tunnels. This is flat out one of the best and most realistic depictions of 17th century warfare. The audio work, the acting, and the setup is brutal and terrifying. Haha, sure do love swashbuckling adventure. We get a nice recreation of the surrender of Breda, and the sacking of the city is conveniently left out. We get to the homecoming. Soldiers return to the shore in this strikingly evocative scene, and Alatriste catches up with Inigo, pleased to hear that he's got himself a possible sugar mama with Angelica. Inigo then goes drinking with a buddy to set up some more of the theological themes in the film.
Vendieron a mi padre, vendieron a mi hermano. La tortura, yo no puedo.
Contra ti no tiene nada. Este soldado, eres inocente.
Luis Pereira, daos preso en nombre del Santo Tribunal de la Inquisición. Se ha cumplido la voluntad de Dios.
Dios no tiene nada que ver con esto.
Yikes. The film is stating here that it is the systems of men that oppress us on Earth, and use the divine only as a mask. They invoke God only to absolve themselves of the moral culpability for their cruelty to other people. Alatriste is hired on yet another job, this time to steal some heretic gold. There's more swashbuckling, and then we get to the allegorical scene in the hold. According to their superior's instructions, only Alatriste and his right hand are allowed in the cargo hold. While examining the cargo, one of Alatriste's men comes down inside and attempts to steal the gold. This is a metaphor for the Spanish lust at the height of their empire, hungering for wealth in the spiritual, economic, and political sense to the point where it tears itself apart from the inside and crushes its own peoples to attain it. Move to winter, the third act of the film, and the empire is staring into the yawning void of decline. Poverty and hunger have become widespread. The lighting becomes bleak and apocalyptic. Don Francisco proposes that Alatriste leave Madrid, and everyone makes up plans to get out like rats leaving a sinking ship. The thing is, Francisco decides to do an epic diss track on King Philip.
Allá, Felipe IV, que en el mundo eres famoso. Abre el pecho generoso, danos de tu sangre un parto. De quien nunca se vio harto del pan que le quita al pobre. De quien ha bajado el cobre, de quien tu reino ha vendido y venderá el mismo Dios. Líbranos. Líbranos, Señor, de todo mal. Amén. Amén.
And, yeah, he dies. He like super dies after that. Inigo tries to elope with Angelica in the middle of the night, but while he's waiting for her, she gets cold feet, starts thinking of her kids. In this shot, she's framed by the staircase and reliefs around her. Visually, she's trapped and cut through the center of the frame. Kind of boxed in there, trapped by her obligations to family and state.
Pero tú serás grande de España, y tus hijos, y los hijos de tus hijos.
So Inigo gets stood up, gambles away his money, and Alatriste has to use all of the money he was going to use to leave Madrid to bail out his adopted son, though the walls are still closing in. Earlier in the movie, Alatriste had a botched duel with a noble, and the constable shows up to lay down the law. Inigo goes after the men who attempted Alatriste's life, and we start getting to the denouement of the film.
Sabes que después no hay nada, ¿verdad? Sí. Ese es el problema.
I mean, wow. This really drives home the point that even though this is a religious war, there are no discussions of theology in the story. The power of the Catholic Church is so webbed into society, so overarching that it is presumed as the natural state of things. And the movie's only direct statement on religion is right there. That's it. We make our own destinies in the world, and whether God or the afterlife exists or not is irrelevant. This isn't nihilistic, it's agnostic. We must focus on our oppression, our viciousness and societal ills on this earthly plane, rather than work our lives around the possible desires of a sky guy we've never met. IMO, this is where the real focus of the story ends. There's a brief interlude with Inigo abruptly getting arrested by the Inquisition, Alatriste getting him released, and then a colossal reenactment of the Battle of Rocroi, which feels like another governmental imposition on the film, especially since it's so glorifying of the Spanish forces. I mean, the whole movie up to this point was an indictment of imperialism, a grim examination of a society that was bludgeoning itself to death rather than cutting its losses and concerning itself with the welfare of its peoples. Even though this ending really isn't my PB&J, there's a potent image here. The grind of nations rushes on, killing the veterans at the vanguard while Inigo and the fresh troops wait at the rear, awaiting their day to arrive in the meat grinder of society. Alatriste is a weird movie. It's the most expensive Spanish production of all time, but it's a grim and terrifying depiction of one of the bloodiest periods in Europe. It doesn't have a clean through line, but rather attempts to depict people in a naturalistic light, and how their lives moved throughout a selected number of years. It's one of the most striking portraits of history, by looking through the eyes of an average man from the period. It's also one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. Costumes, lighting, engaging camera work all combine to a profound sense of tactile atmosphere. Let's see Game of Thrones pull off something like this.
Esto no está nada claro.
Thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. If you'd like me to analyze another film, just drop it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.